Hi, welcome to something a little bit new and different with GTheory coaching. We're going to be talking about finding an apex at autocross. It comes up a lot often. People ask me questions. Okay, but where's the apex? Where's the apex of this corner? Am I apexing this corner correctly? Um, yeah, it comes up. It comes up a lot, and especially with people doing very inexpensive track days and getting time on a track and saying, at a track they have the cone there. That's the apex. And that's not always the case at autocross. And so I have a little different way of thinking about apexing and autocross that hopefully will be helpful. So let's get started. What is an apex? Um, Usually there's a little cone there, but the apex is basically the center of the corner. Obviously, people call it the clipping point. And there's a lot of theory about, where to apex. Do you early apex? Do you late apex? What's after the corner? It gets complicated from there. But the apex is the point at which you are closest to the inside of the corner. Okay, autocross though. We're talking about autocross. So key cones. Key cones are the cones that are the important ones. Things that aren't key cones you could remove and wouldn't change the way you drive the course. So in this case, the blue cones are the key cones. If you remove the orange cones, it doesn't change the way you drive the course. The blue cones limit you in some way. They provide either prevent you from lining up wider or coming in tighter, what have you. They limit your racing line. So we know what an apex is. We know what key cones are. So let's take a look at this. So this is from the novice school last year, and it's a series of corners, but in the blue section, where is the apex? You can pause the video, take a look. Okay, first thing you have to do is draw a line. If you want to find out where the apex is, can you find the apex in that section? I can find a few. There's at least 2 or 3, 4 if you include the corner before. But what's the problem? I mean, why? Yeah, those are the apexes. Those are the center of the corners closest to the turn. Apex. That's the definition of an apex. Those are where the apexes are according to that definition. But there's a problem. The problem is the racing line. It's the incorrect racing line. If you look at the circles denote the radius of the corner. They're coming in really tight and having to avoid the second cone. Let me go ahead and grab my spotlight here. So people are driving, having to avoid that cone right there. That's what a lot of people do. They'll drive in, they're going to take it nice and tight on these cones, make this nice, beautiful arc, and they're going to drive straight from one cone to the next. And that's not the fastest way to drive this corner or series of corners. The thing with autocross is there's no established racing line, typically. It's not done on a circuit that's been driven for decades, where, okay, if you're in a Miata, you take this line, and if you're in a 911, you take this line, and if you have a race car on slicks and aero, you can take this line, where all the different factors in the cars and what makes them individually unique, what their best line is. At autocross, there is no established racing line, and I think there's a better way to think about apexing and autocrossing, and that's car placement. The number one most important thing in car placement is, where do you put your car? So let's move on here. Car placement is number one. How do we determine car placement? We know where we start. We know where we want to go. I like to start with the areas that are most important. Areas that lead onto straights, areas where I'm confined, especially in the middle of a fast section. So it could be fast section, confining element like a slalom or pinch, open section. In this case, I'm really thinking about the Chicago box, or the L right here, the pinch. It's really not finished, so I can't really call it Chicago box. Thinking of this area here, and I know at the beginning here I have to line up on the right. So that's what this looks like. Well, first let's identify the key cones. I was kind of talking about it in the last one, but in this case, the blue cones are the key cones. And these are the cones that are important, that limit us, that I'm going to have to pay attention to. And once we have the key cones, we can place the car. So I know I need to line up on the right in the beginning here. I'm going to have to get close to this key cone. I have to get close to both of these cones, and I know I need to take this kind of straight line through it because that sets me up on the left to turn right down here, and this will be the fastest way through this pin section. So first is the car placement. Well, excuse me. First is key cones. Second, car placement. Car placement is the most important. That's why I say it's number one. So let's draw the line. All right, using the shortest distance possible, connect the lines. So now we have a way of thinking about the course. Now where the apexes are don't really matter. What matters is our car placement. We can express that in terms of what cones are we close to and what direction is the car traveling when we get to that cone. I'll give you an example. The cone at the top of the hill here, we're heading in this direction. Heading in this direction. If someone lined up, let's say differently here, if someone lined up and they were going maybe in the middle, in order to have that same angle, they would have to make a really sharp turn, which is unlikely. What's probably going to happen is they're not going to be able to turn as tight, and they're going to end up farther on the outside, or they're going to have to really park it. Yeah, we're all at tight on that cone, but it's the angle of the car that matters. Same thing when it comes down here. Which way are we going to be? Are we going to be on this cone heading at this angle? Or are we not going to think about that and end up at this cone at this angle? If you were that red line, you're either going to DNF or you'd have to really park the car. So instead of thinking about the apexes again, let's think about the key cones, the cones we're going to be tight to, and what direction the car is going to be traveling. Once we do that, that will help us determine our car placement. Once we know our car placement, we know where we need to drive. So key cone, car angle, you can think of that as your autocross apex. Great. Thanks for watching. I just wanted to make this a short video. I hope it's been helpful. Please subscribe. And as always, leave any comments down below or questions. And thank you for watching.